In this video, we're going to find out more what it means to trade goods, what trading is, what trading means, and other things. Trade. Trade involves the transfer of goods and services from one person or entity to another, often in exchange for money. Economists refer to a system or network that allows trade as a market. Traders generally negotiate through a medium of credit or exchange, such as money. Through some economists characterize barter, trading things without the use of money, as an early form of trade. Money was invented before written history began. Consequently, any story of how money first developed is mostly based on conjecture and logical inference. Letters of credit, paper money, and non physical money have greatly simplified and promoted trade as buying can be separated from selling or earning. Trade between two traders is called bilateral trade, or trade involving more than two traders is called multilateral trade. In one modern view, trade exists due to specialization and the division of labor, a predominant form of economic activity in which individuals and groups concentrate on a small aspect of production, but use the output in trade for other products and needs. Trade exists between regions because different regions may have a comparative advantage, perceived or real, in the production of some tradable goods, including the production of scarce or limited natural resources elsewhere. For example, different regions' sizes may encourage mass production. In such circumstances, trading at market price between locations can benefit both locations. Different types of traders may specialize in trading different kinds of goods. For example, the spice trade and grain trade have both historically been important in the development of a global international economy. Retail trade consists of the sale of goods or merchandise from a very fixed location, such as a department store, boutique, or kiosk, online or by mail, in small or individual lots for direct consumption are used by the purchaser. Wholesale trade is the traffic in goods that are sold as merchandise to retailers, industrial, commercial, institutional, or other professional business users, or to other wholesalers and related subordinated services. Historically, openness to free trade substantially increased in some areas. From 1815 until the outbreak of World War I in 1914, trade openness increased again during the 1920s, but collapsed in particular in Europe and North America during the Great Depression of the 1930s. Trade openness increased substantially again from the 1950s onward, albeit with a slowdown during the oil crisis of the 1970s. Economists and economic historians contend that current levels of trade openness are the highest they have ever been. So we're going to look at these two, bilateral and multilateral trade, which seems interesting to me. So, bilateral trade or clearing trade, exclusively between two states, particularly barter trade, based on bilateral deals between governments and without using hard currency for payments. Bilateral trade agreements often aim to keep trade deficits at minimum by keeping a clearing account where deficit would accumulate. The Soviet Union conducted bilateral trade with two nations, India and Finland. On the Soviet side, the trade was nationalized, but on the other side, also private capitalists negotiated deals. Relationships with politicians in charge of foreign policy were especially important for such businessmen. The framework limited traded goods to those manufactured domestically and as such constituted a subsidy to domestic industry. Bilateral trade was highly popular within Finnish business circles as it allowed the commission of very large orders. Additionally, with less stringent requirements for sophistication or quality, if compared to Western markets, the Soviet side was motivated to participate in clearing trade because the arrangement essentially provided cheap credit. The option was to sell obligations to the international market and pay interest in hard currency. Capital, such as icebreakers, train carriages, or consumer goods, could be obtained from Finland, and the cost would simply become clearing account deficit, eventually to be paid back as crude oil or as orders such as nuclear power plants. Lovisla 1 and 2. Clearing trade was at its busiest up to the 1970s, but began to lose its momentum in the 1980s. In the last of its years, the Soviet Union's debt began accumulating on an alarming rate into clearing accounts. As a result, the Soviet Union started to pay the deficits with oil, a good with little value added and easily exchangeable to hard currency, which militated against the principle of bilateral trade. With the dissolution of the Soviet Union, this form of trade has mostly disappeared. Bilateral trade is a manifestation of bilateralism. In contrast, multilateralism, and in particular multilateral trade agreements, became more important. Strategic goods such as nuclear technology are still traded bilaterally rather than in a multilateral open market. We see multilateral treaty. Multilateral treaty or multilateral agreement is a treaty to which two or more sovereign states are parties. Each party owes the same obligations to all other parties, except to the extent that they have stated reservations. Examples of multilateral treaties include the Convention relating to the status of refugees, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the Geneva Conventions, and the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. I wanted to see, I think that was it. And that concludes this video about trade, bilateral trade, and multilateral trade.